All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the webinar on some of the new features in Candy. My name is Johan Stein, and I'm a technical consultant for construction computer software. It is my pleasure to present this webinar to you. Today, we will be discussing task codes that will help you streamline your work and help you to control your productive resources like your labor, plant, and subcontractors. I will aim to keep this webinar within the allowed time frame of approximately 1 hour. Due to the large number of people logged onto this webinar, we will not be able to answer any questions during the presentation. However, please submit your questions during the webinar with the provided function on the screen. Afterwards, we will collate these questions and send the answers to everybody that's registered for the webinar via email. Please note that the webinar will be recorded and you will receive a link to download it. We are hosting a webinar once a month on various Candy topics. Should you not be able to attend the webinar at any given time frame, then please still register for the webinar, as you will automatically receive a recorded copy of the webinar. Now, without further delay, let's get started. All right, so firstly, I'm just going to touch on the topics that we're going to share or talk about today. So the first topic would be the 5 W's of costing. Then it would be creating a task code. I'm also going to show you how to allocate a task code, how to do job analysis using a task code, and also to do some report analysis using task code. So before I start to explain the Candy task code, I want to give you a frame of reference to understand exactly where the Candy task code fits in. We call that the Candy's 5 W's of costing. So the following 5 W's describe the way we do cost control in Candy. The first W would be the bill code. That's used for your location control. The bill code will sum only money. These codes are job specific. And the bill code is allocated to bill items. The bill code is also fixed by the project team. The second W is the what. That deals with the Candy task code, which helps you with your functional control of productive resources. So firstly, the task code is also called the activity code from an accounting perspective. The task code sums both money and quantity. It is used for functional control, example for your labor and your plant control. Your task code is used for items with like production or like cost sensitivity. We'll have the same task code. Example, bulk excavation and hand excavation are two different codes. These codes are division specific, and the task codes are also allocated to your price codes. The task code is also fixed by the company's division. The third W is with, which deals with the Candy cost code, which is used for your resource control, also known as the ledger code from an accounting perspective. Your cost code is used for resource-based control. The code is fixed by a company accounting system. Your cost code is allocated to resources. Then the fourth W is the who, which deals with the Candy group code, also known as the supplier code. It will show us who supplied the material. Then our last W, the fifth W, would be the Candy planning, used for procurement control. So the link between Candy estimating and Candy planning provides a timing or when things will happen or when material is required. Like I said, used for your procurement control. Just a quick recap of the 5 W's of costing. The first one is where, which is our Candy bill code. The second W is the what, the Candy task code. That's the one we'll be sharing on this webinar. Then the third W is the with, which is the Candy cost code. The fourth W is the who, which is the Candy group code. And then the last W, the fifth W, is Candy planning. Alright, so now before I want to show you how to create and allocate task codes, let's have a look at the results we will see once we have allocated these task codes. So I'm going to go to my job. So first off, just to check that we have task codes allocated, we'll click on our Estimating Definitions and Settings hammer, also known as the blue hammer. And if we look at 2.1 task codes, which in brackets says activity code, we can see there that this job has already a task code list defined. So let's go and have a look at what this task code can give us once it's allocated to bill items. I'm going to go to Finalization, select Job Analysis 2, and then I'm going to select Document 1.1 Split Amounts Summary. Right, so for tender analysis, the first step is to look at the average rate per task code. Remember what I said at the 5 W's of costing, that the task code should be division specific to keep the task codes unanimous throughout a company's division. So now the estimator can see the average rate per task code for this tender and compare the rate to previous historical data or previous jobs to make sure that the average rate is correct. If the average rate is either too high or too low, further investigations can be done. So if we have a look at task code 1101, which is concrete in blinding, we can see we have an allowable quantity for bill and an final allowable quantity as well. We then have an average rate, which Candy works out by taking the allowable amount, which is 70,885, divided by the quantity to give us a rate of 836 Rand 40 per cubic meter. It will also show us then the bill split amounts for that task code. If I go back to job analysis, I can open up document 1.1, which is my split rate summary. If I size that to the bottom half and size my split amounts to the top half, now I can see the first document at the top will show me my bill split amounts, and the document at the bottom will show me my bill split rate. So again, if we look at task code 1101 for concrete in blinding, we can see there is our average rate of 836 Rand 40 cents per cubic meter, and that is split up into 104 Rand for labor, 131 Rand for plant, and 601 Rand for material. Your split rates document will help you with your daily costing on your project. It's also a good way where the estimator can see what is the average rate for this tender compared to any historical data. The task code can also be used for post-tender analysis, where the site team can control the cost of productive resources. On these documents that we're opening, I'm going to go to Cost and Allowables, open up my document manager, So on these documents, we are going to see what a cost and allowable report would look like on a cost code level and then also on a task code level. So the first document, 1.1, are cost and allowable by period, cost code only. So if I open up that document, there you'll see it gives me a to date allowable, a remaining allowable, and at completion. So what happens, the allowable here would be created from my Candy valuation. Then I have a to date cost coming from my accounting package, and then it shows me a variance either positive or negative. So currently we see we are losing 177,000 Rand on this job, and that comes from mainly our cost code general labor and from our external plant hire. We can see we're losing money. We can also see if we look at cost code sand, we have a positive variance, which means we're making money. And also on fuel, cost code fuel, we can see we're making a positive variance, so we're making money for that cost code. All right, so now that we've seen that there are two negatives, or the main negative, which is general labor and external plant hire, we can now, by adding the task code, we can now go and break down the different activities for these cost codes to see exactly which activities is costing us more than what we've allowed for. This also allows the team to identify the problem areas or problem activities and focus on them to minimize or prevent further losses on labor. So I'm going to keep this document open. I'm going to go back to my document manager, and I'm going to open the document 1.1a, cost and allowables by period, cost and task code document. Just to maximize this one quickly, there we can see our cost code and task code coming through. If we close all the headings, we can see there's the previous screen we saw. But now, because we've added the task code, we can now go and break down each of these cost codes to go and view which activities are either making or losing us money. So if we go and have a look at general labor, we can see for general labor, we're losing 124,900 Rand. If we open up the heading labor, we can then see all the different task codes, the activities linked to that cost code, and we can see each one either making or losing us money. So if we have a look, our main culprits would be clear site, where we're losing 121,000 Rand, and also concrete foundations, where we're losing 41,000 Rand. So now we can go and pinpoint and see which activities are losing us money so that we can go and have a look and see if we can control the costs. If we have a look at cost code external plant hire, we will see there's all the activities that's contributing to that cost code. So we can see for external plant hire, we're losing 265,000 Rand, and the most of that comes from the task code excavations, where we're losing 278,000 Rand. So if I size that one to the bottom half, and I size my first document to the top half, there you can go and see, if we look at external plant hire, now you can go and see the difference by just viewing your report at a cost code level, which just shows us the negative variance, in comparison to the document with the task code, which then shows us exactly where we are losing money. All right, so to have a quick recap on what we've seen, by applying the task code, the following information can be analyzed. So we can get a total quantity per task. We get an average rate per task. We also get a total amount per task. and then we get an average split of labor, plant, material per task. Alright, so if we go back to Candy, I'm going to get out of this job. I'm going to go to my job manager. So before we will be able to analyze the data, we first need to go make sure that we have task codes in place, or we need to go and create new task codes if necessary, and that will be done if I go into this job, if I go to the definitions and settings menu, which is the blue hammer. So if I look at 2.1 task codes in brackets my activity code, I can see there is a list of task codes already in place or already defined. So let me start by explaining the list you see on the screen. The first column you see is the task code heading level column, which is that small L column there. This is similar to the headings of your bill of quantities with a hierarchical level of 1 to 9. These are also used to collate the task codes arranged below them. The task code headings are used to structure task codes and to summarize their results. They are not allocated to the top price codes. They are only used to collate your subordinate task codes. So let's have a look at an example. Let's use level heading 1, which is our concrete, formwork, and reinforcing. This will in turn then summarize all the level heading 2s below it. So if you have a look, there's formwork and reinforcing. So that will all summarize to the level heading 1, concrete, formwork, and reinforcing. In this summarization process, the quantity and value are transferred to the headings. The average rates can be calculated at any level of the heading or at a task code level. We will now have a look at this later in the webinar. The second column is the task code list column. The task code list is not sorted by code like your resource code list. These codes are positioned by the user into a logical vertical order under a heading structure similar to the bill. I will demonstrate this by adding some task codes to the existing list without disrupting the structure already created. But let me finish explaining the columns first. The third column is the description column, and each task code and task heading is defined here. The fourth column is our unit column, and the fifth column is the quantity factor column, and they go hand in hand. Let me explain. The task code heading factor converts a task code quantity to the unit of the task code heading above. A task code collates all the quantities of the bill items that use it via the connecting price code. So this quantity is then passed from the task code to the heading above after the conversion of the units. There's three different examples, and let me explain. The first one would be if our units are exactly the same. So let's have a look at formwork. So our heading formwork is measured in square meters. Now our task code is also defined in square meters. So therefore the task code heading or the task code quantity factor would be 1. The second example is where the units would differ. So if we have a look at our heading reinforcing, we can see it is measured in ton. But if we look at the task code mesh, it is measured in square meters. So therefore, the task code heading factor would be 0.004 to convert my task code quantity to the quantity or to the unit of my task code heading. Example 3 The third example is where the task code, let's take task code 5200, which is manholes, is measured in number, but the heading for that task code is stormwater drainage, which is measured in a linear meter. So therefore, the task code factor would be 0 or blank, because we want to collect the money or the amount to contribute to that task code heading, but not the quantity. I will explain this later in the webinar. Please remember that the task code heading factor must not be confused with the task code quantity factor, which converts bill item quantities to task code units. I will share on this a bit later in the webinar as well. Before I'm going to allocate the task codes, I'm going to add in a few extra task codes to our existing list. So I'm going to insert a few blank lines above our task code heading formwork by using the shortcut Control Insert. So I'm going to click on my heading formwork, and I'm going to use my keyboard and press Control plus the Insert button, and I'm going to insert a couple of lines. I'm going to create a level heading 2. I'm going to give it a task code or a heading code of 1100. I'm going to call it concrete. The unit is going to be cubic meters. And now I'm going to create a few task codes underneath that heading. So my first task code is going to be 1101, which is task code concrete for blinding. With a unit of cubic meters. Because my task code is measured in cubic meters and my concrete heading is in cubic meters, I'm going to give that a quantity factor of 1. My second task code is going to be 1102, which is concrete in foundations. Measured in cubic meters and a quantity factor of 1. My third task code is going to be 1103, which is going to be task code concrete in walls. Also measured in cubic meters and a task code factor of 1. My last task code that I'm going to create is 1104, which is task code concrete for ground slabs. Measured in cubic meters with a task code factor of 1. You'll see I've given the heading concrete also a task code quantity factor of 1. This will help me to go and create an average rate for my level heading 1, which is concrete, formwork, and reinforcing. So it will use my concrete's quantities together with formwork and reinforcing's amount to give me an average rate for my level 1 heading concrete, formwork, and reinforcing. I will show you this just now. So once we have created the task codes, we can now go and link them to our bill items where it will sum the value and the quantities via the price code. So I'm going to click on OK. I'm going to go to estimating. I'm going to create myself a new document. I'm going to go to new document, and I'm going to bring through 1.1 my standard bill of quantities. I'm going to leave the original document as it is, and I'm going to make a duplicate. So I'll right click on that document, duplicate the document. I'm going to rename it to 1.1a standard bill of quantities with task. I'm going to customize that document. Just to show you, I'm going to allocate the price code to this document as well. We're going to go to number 16, codes and factors. So firstly, I'm going to add my task code columns. The first one is task code what, 16.10. I'm going to add 16.11, my task code description. 16.12, my task code unit. And then also 16.13, which is my task code quantity conversion factor. Just to show you, I can go and find a specific column. So I'm going to look for my price code column. I'm going to click on find. There it shows me it's under number 8, my pricing. And I'm going to add the price code just behind my bill of quantities. I'm going to click on OK and select that document. Alright, so just also take note that the task codes are allocated to price codes, and the price codes are used to price the bill items. So while a task code may appear to belong to a bill item, it actually belongs to the price code used by that bill item. So changing the task code allocated to a price code will also change the task code for all the other bill items that use that same price code. Right, so with document 1.1a standard bill of quantities with task now open, we can go and do a filter in the task code column to see if there are any blanks or unallocated task codes in the bill. So to do that, I'm going to right click in my task code column. So I right click on the header, I'm going to filter, and I'm going to select the option to filter for blanks. We can now see the filtering toolbar on the screen, and the filtering toolbar shows me that Candy has found 9 unallocated task codes. If I click on hide the rejects, it will show me only the bill items and price codes with unallocated task codes. So to allocate the task codes to the bill items, there are 3 methods to use. Firstly, if you can remember or know exactly which task codes needs to be linked to the bill item, then you can manually type in the task code. So for item K, which is our C10 concrete in blinding, measured in square meters, I will enter the task code 1101 for concrete blinding in the task code column. So I can type in 1101. As soon as I press tab to move across, there Candy picks up my task code concrete in blinding. My task code unit is measured in cubic meters, while my bill item is measured in square meters. So to convert my bill quantity to my task code unit, I need to put in a quantity factor of 0.05, which takes into account the 50 millimeters of blinding to be done. Remember, I said that we must not confuse the task code heading factor with the task code quantity factor, because the task code quantity factor is now used to convert the bill quantity into a task code unit so that it can be accumulated into the task code. This process needs the price code to be connected with bill items. So to explain this, let's have a look. So my bill item to the price code. So bill items use price codes for their pricing. So if we have a look at item K, C10 concrete and blinding, it has a price code of C2212. And multiple bill items can use the same price code. Alright? So the bill item and the price code should have the same unit. Therefore, the price code can collect the quantities of all the bill items that it used. The price code to the task code. So multiple price codes can use the same task code. Therefore, the collected quantity of bill items using a price code can be passed on to the task code. However, the units between the price code and the task code could be different, and that's where the task code quantity factor comes in. So the second method to allocating a task code is to right-click in the task code column for that specific item. So if we have a look at item L, which is concrete in foundations, I'm going to right-click in the task code column in line with item L. I can then select the option to allocate task codes. And then my task code list will appear. I now need to go and search for the relevant task code. If I have a look at my task codes starting with 11, I can see there's all my concrete task codes. So for item L, which is C20 concrete and foundations, I'm going to select task code 1102, which is concrete foundations. Green tick that. This just gives me a warning that my price codes would be changed, the property of it. Because multiple bill items use the same price code, my task code will now be linked to both of them. So if I select yes, you'll see for C20 concrete and foundations, which is item L, item E at the bottom, C20 concrete and foundations, use the exact same price code, which is C341. So by allocating my task code to one of them, it will allocate it to any bill item using the same price code. Just remember, if you right click and you select your task codes, if you use your mouse, you need to go and manually change your quantity factor. So just to make sure, item L is measured in cubic meters. Our task code is in cubic meters. So therefore, our quantity factor can be 1. The third method to allocate a task code is to double click in the task code column. So let's take item M and allocate a task code to C25 concrete in walls. So if I double click in my task code column for that specific item, the exact same list will appear. So on this list, I'm going to allocate the relevant task code, which is 1103 for concrete in walls. If I green tick that, if I have a look at the build quantity unit, which is cubic meter, my task code unit, which is cubic meter, I can then make my quantity factor 1 again. So let's use this third method to allocate the rest of the Candy task codes. So we will be using the double click function, and we'll make sure that the task code quantity factors are correct as well. So for item N, which is C25 concrete in ground slabs, I'll double click in the task code column. I'll select task code 1104 for concrete ground slabs. Again, it warns me that there's multiple bill item or bill items linked to a price code. It will adopt the task code. I say yes. So there we can see for item N and for item E at the bottom, it's allocated my concrete ground slab task code. Just need to remember to change the quantity factor. Then our last concrete item G at the bottom, C25 concrete in transformer bases. I'm going to allocate the task code 1102 for concrete in foundation. And then I'll make the task code quantity factor 1 as well. Alright, so take note now for item O and for item H, which is our wood float, we can go and allocate the task code of concrete in ground slabs. So I'll double click in that column. I'll select my concrete ground slabs task code. Again, it tells me that there's multiple bill items involved. Click yes. For this item, I'm going to leave the quantity factor as a 0. By using the task code factor of 0, the money will be included, but not the quantity. For example, we may wish to add the cost of the wood float finish to the task code of concrete in ground slabs, but we only require the quantity of the concrete in ground slabs and not the quantity of the wood float finish. Therefore, I would leave my quantity factor as 0. I will abandon this filter now. And just to make sure that we have allocated all our task codes, I'll run the filter again, just to make sure that I have not missed anything. So in my task code column header, I'll right click, select the filter and select the option to filter for blanks. Candy tells me that there is no items found in this filter. So now we can go on to do some job analysis on the information that we've just entered. So I'm going to close my bill. I'm going to go to the menu finalization. I'm going to select job analysis 2. I'm going to select document 1.1, my split amounts summary. Alright, so let's say the estimator wants to do some tender analysis and compare this current job with a previous job or any historical data they might have, to have a look at the average rate of certain activities or tasks to ensure that they are still on the right track compared to the historical data, and that the average rates are not too low or too high. If found that the average rate is either too low or too high, the estimator can go back to the bill and identify the problem area and fix it. So on this document, Candy works out my average rate, or also called our derived rate. Like I said previously, to calculate that average or derived rate, it takes my amount, so my total amount, and divide it by my total quantity for that task to give me an average rate, or what we call a derived rate. This document also shows us the resource split amounts for each task code. So if we have a look at task code 1101, our concrete and blinding again, we can see our quantities. So there's a build quantity and a final quantity. And then we can see the average rate is 836 Rand 40 cents per cubic meter of concrete in blinding. This is why it's so important to keep the task codes the same throughout a company's specific division, so that the estimator can easily compare the average rate for this job against historical data of the company. On this document, you'll also see two columns that stand out from the rest, and that is marked with an asterisk. This indicates that there's some extra options behind these columns. The first column that we can have a look at is the average rate column. Alright, so you'll see it's marked with an asterisk. It's also highlighted in blue. If I right click on that column header, I can go and change the quantity to calculate my average rate. So at the moment, it's using my build quantity to calculate my average rate. But I can select any one of these quantities to go and work out my derived rate. The second column with the asterisk is the labor column, which forms part of the build split amounts column layout. And by right clicking on this column header, I can go and select a different quantity for my split amounts. So again, I can go and select a different quantity to work out my split amounts. Or I can just select the option to show the split rates. Remember what I said previously, that the split rates here will help us with our daily costing. You can easily change that back to your split amounts by right-clicking again on the labor column and selecting the option to show split amounts. If you don't like this method, you can always go back to job analysis. So if you go back to finalization, select job analysis 2. You can go and duplicate 1.1 split amount summary. I've already done that, and I've called it 1.1a split rate summary. So if I select that document, I've changed the layout of that document to, instead of showing me my bill split amounts, to show me my bill split rate. So if we have a look at the two documents, The top one will show me my split amounts for each task code, and the bottom document would show me my average rate or my derived rate for each task code split up into the resource types. I can close these documents. The next document that we can have a look at is also under finalization, which is job analysis 2, and it's document 1.2, production derived rates and man hours. If I open up this document, so the information this document can offer us, it groups the information by task code. So if I close all the headings, there I can see there's all my different task codes. Now I can go and break down these task codes to also show me the cost codes that is linked to these task codes. So again, if we have a look at task code 1101, concrete and blinding, if I click on the plus sign, it will show me all the cost codes linked to that task code. It will also show me an allowable quantity for each task code. There I can see bill and final. Then it also shows me an average or a derived rate for each task code per unit of measure. Then again, it shows me the production per unit of measure. And then lastly, it shows me the total man hours per task code. So if you have a look at concrete blinding, if I close that task code again, at the end, that last column, it shows me for concrete in blinding, we are going to need 438 man hours. I'm going to close everything on my screen. And now we can go and do some analysis reports on all the information that we've just seen. So after we've checked that the task code allocation is correct and we've analyzed the job, we can now go ahead and print some reports. To do that, I go to my report manager, which is my printer. So the first report that we'll be printing is report number 29, which is my project code's production rate. So before I can print this report, I need to customize it. I'm going to leave the selections as it is. I don't want to filter for a specific task code, so I'm going to leave this filter blank. Click on OK. Then I can select the quantity I want to report on. I'm going to select bill quantity. And then I can go and preview this report. So if we have a look at this report, it shows me my task codes on the left-hand side. It also shows me acronyms A, B, C, D, which is resource combinations to help me with my man hours. That will be dealt with in a later webinar. But here it shows me I have for clear site a quantity of 8,250 square meters. My skilled man hours on this task would be 198 hours. It then works out a production for me, which tells me that per square meter we are going to use 0.0239 hours. And this last column shows me then the total square meters we can produce within 1 hour. I'm going to close down this report. The next report that we'll be printing is report number 27, which is my project code resource analysis. If I customize this report, I'm going to unselect the option to print code separately. So firstly, I don't want to print it separately for now. I want to make sure I analyze all my complexes to a level 9. And I want my summary to be at a cost code level. So I'm going to select OK. Now I can select my quantity. I'm going to leave it on bill quantity. Then it asks me for further filtering options. So my primary search is going to be task codes. I'm going to leave my secondary as none. And click on OK. And then I can go and preview this report. So if we have a look at this report, there it shows me all my complexes that's broken down. There it shows me all my root complexes. The next page shows me all my simple resources. It will show you all the plant, material, and labor. And then my last page shows me all my cost codes for this job. But this hasn't shown me my task codes allocation and all the resources linked to those task codes. So to do that, I'm going to close this report. I'm going to customize it again. And this time, I'm going to select the option to print the codes separately. I'm going to click on OK. Select my bill quantity. I'm going to leave my selection as it is. Click on OK. And then I can go and preview this report. Alright, so if we have a look at this report, there we can see is our task code 10100 for clear site. And there it shows me all my resources linked to that task code. It also shows me that those resources have a cost code linked to it. It will show me my final rate for those resources and then also a utilization of each resource. If I go to the next page, it will show me then a summary of my cost codes for that task code of 0100 clear site. Let's go to the next page. There it shows me my second task code, which is 0110 excavation. There it shows me all my resources linked to that task code. Again, with the different cost codes linked to the resources, the final rate of each resource, and also the utilization of each resource. Again, the next page will then show me a summary of my cost codes for that specific task code. I'm not going to go through the whole report. I think you guys get the idea. So I'm going to close this report. The next report that I want to print is my project codes report, report number 26. I'm going to customize that report. Now, to refer back to our 5 W's, I'm going to select my primary search or my primary selection as my bill code to show me where on my project the task code is. So my primary selection would be bill code. I'm going to change my secondary selection to be task code. I'm going to click on OK, select my quantity, and then I'm going to select the option to print my bill and summary, and to print this report on my net rate. I'm going to click on OK, and then I can go and preview this report. Right, so if you have a look at this report, it shows me my bill code, which is 2000, ventilation shaft, and then it shows me all the task codes and the items linked to that bill code. So it will show me where, which was my first W, and then it would show me my task codes, which is the second W, the what. If we go to the last page, there it shows me a summary of my bill code and the task codes linked to that bill code. I'm going to close down this report. And then our last report that we want to go and print is under our tab Valuations. So I'm going to close down my report manager. I'm going to switch to the valuation application. I'm going to open up my report manager. I'm going to add in a new report. So I'm going to click on New Report. I'm going to select number 1, Valuation Bill of Quantities. And then I'm going to select 1.4, Net Valuation grouped by Project Code. I'm going to customize this report. The first customization is I'm going to change some of the columns. So I'll select the button Add and Remove Columns. I'm going to take away my actual quantity, and I'm going to add in my bill net amount, which is 6.1, and just below my actual net amount, I'm going to add in my final net amount. I'm going to click on OK. The last customization is going to be under the tab Paging and Totaling. I only want to print a summary. And then under my group by code, I want to select task code. Click on OK, and then I'm going to preview that report. So if we have a look at this report, there it shows me all of my task codes, and then it will show me my net amounts, my actual amount, and my final net amount. I'm going to close down this report. Alright, that was that for our webinar for today. I'm sure you will agree with me that Candy is continuing to be a leader in the estimating and project control software. Thank you for your time, and I trust that you'll find these features useful in your daily use of Candy. Please remember to email your local CCS office if you want to know more about these features. We will keep you informed of the next webinar, and remember, if you cannot join on the selected time, then please still register and you will receive the recording, which you can then watch at your own time. Enjoy the rest of your day and see you at the next webinar. Goodbye for now.